And welcome back, everybody, to the Paramedic AF show. I'm Daniel,
And I'm Michelle.
and today we have a special guest for you. This is Brad Lawson from North Carolina. Some of you may have seen on TikTok there is a first responder mental health summit coming to North Carolina. This is the man behind it, and we figured y'all would love to hear from him, what he's doing, what he's going to be doing, and all the good things. So, Brad, thanks for joining us, bud.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me. It's going to be a good time.
You and I have talked extensively. Michelle has not. So, explain to her
Way
and
to call me
therefore to
out.
everybody else, what your career has been in public service and what you're trying to do now.
Sure. So, Michelle and everybody else. So, I've been in EMS about a little over 26 years now. Like a lot of us that I talk to that's in the service, a bunch of us just started up in this at a young age. I was in high school, became influenced through some friends in school and got interested in the volunteer side of things. Started volunteering in my hometown, and it just sort of went from there. And just instantaneously, I knew that that's what I wanted to be. So many of us were having conversations about what we were going to go to college for and all this other stuff. And just after showing up one day, I knew this is what I wanted to do. The very first call, I just knew it. So I was always that person who felt like I'm always going to be a career paramedic. I don't see myself ever doing anything else. But life has a way of changing that sometimes, and so I found myself, I started going into other areas of EMS. And so back in the early 2010s, I got involved with what was sort of new as community paramedicine. So I had an opportunity to get into that on the early side of things, and it became something that, wow, I could do this forever. I fell in love with it. And, so I was able to do community paramedicine for a while. I was able to work several years at a smaller service here in North Carolina. I was their deputy director of operations there. Worked with a really large organization for a little while. But those really small mom and pop private companies, you sort of learn a lot of things. I feel like every situation we're in, we can learn whether if it's good things or bad things. And so I was able to learn a lot in those kinds of systems. So I moved over into the private sector doing some things after community paramedicine. I partnered up with a high school friend who is now a pharmacist, and we started working alongside of some community paramedicine programs to sort of bridge that gap, because in community paramedicine, that's where a lot of the problem was that we found was between folks being discharged and having the adequate medications and things of that nature. So meeting a lot of those barriers was an opportunity for us to do some things in the private sector. So I really enjoyed doing that. And then somewhere in the middle, I found my way over into the education world. So I've been an educator for about 20 years now, and full-time for about 10 or 11. And so that's primarily what I've been doing the past 7 or 8 years, along with building my company, Pierce Provisions. So I've enjoyed being able to teach locally and do initial education classes and watch folks come in. They've got that spark. They want to do great in the world, and we're able to send them out there. And then 6 months later, they're like talking like every burnout fucking paramedic in the world, right?
Yeah, yes.
Like, you've only been doing this 6 months. How are you already burned out? But, so I've done some interesting things. One thing that I was able to do the past couple of years was going around in North Carolina. There's the North Carolina EMS leadership program, EMS officer series that was developed by a friend of mine here in North Carolina. And it gave me an opportunity to go all over the state and see different systems. One thing I was getting disheartened with was regionally where I'm from, it can seem sort of stagnant. It can seem like, there's no positivity. There's never going to be any change in EMS and the way things are done. It's always the good old boy thing, and we're going to treat our employees like shit, and that's just how it is. Well, being able to get out into other areas of North Carolina, it's not like that. And it was so refreshing to see that there are services out there. There are true leaders and organizations that are really being supportive of their staff, and want to truly see the best and have the best for their employees. So that was very
Mhm.
refreshing to be at around 25 years in my career. It was really refreshing to see that that stuff really does exist, and we're not just out here talking about a bunch of bullshit for nothing.
Mhm.
So that motivated me even more, to do more. And so the leadership thing sort of turned into a promise that I made several years ago. I lost a good friend, and I made a promise that I would do something to try to bring more awareness to mental health, mental wellness. And so I sat down and I developed Saving Ourselves. And what Saving Ourselves was initially for was just it was a speaking event, but it was a conversation. It was a raw look into my past and a lot of the things that I fucked up and did wrong, and how I almost lost, but I was able to um, put some things in place, finally reach out for some help. And once I did reach out for help, there was an abundance of help available. And so thinking about that, I started thinking, the first thing we have to do is we have to make that first step towards saving ourselves. Everybody that we lose, there's very few that let you know ahead of time. If we
Mhm.
don't want you to know that we're struggling, we're not going to give you any sign that we're struggling. So unless we're willing to be vulnerable and open up and ask for some help, we're not going to get it. So by being able to share my story, that was an inspirational thing to several people. And a lot of them reached out to me and they were inspired and want to share their story, and in hopes that not only that it helps somebody else, but that maybe it helps them, because I talk about how therapeutic it is for me to be able to be on a stage and just be vulnerable with 100 or 200 people I don't even know. There's a lot there for me, and I feel a release. And all those things that we carry, I'm able to just lay it out, and I feel lighter once we have had that experience together. And every time we have somebody who comes up and feels at least validated in their own feelings, and as long as I get somebody who says that something I said helped them, we'll keep doing it. And so those folks kept coming. And I was like, so how can we build on this? So we started talking about having a 1 day event where a few folks can get together and tell their stories. And it just grew in momentum to the point to now we're talking about having a summit,
Mhm.
so the North Carolina First Responder Mental Wellness Summit came from just a conversation after having a Saving Ourselves event. And it's been really
Mhm.
crazy.
This is the kind of stuff that needs to be talked about, though. I mean, oftentimes, I think we even talked about it in trauma therapy, that the more you talk about it, the less control it has over you. And something that I've actively been telling my current class that I have, like when we were lecturing on psych disorders, and of course, the textbook is 5 years old, they're getting ready to update and yada yada. So, like, 5 years ago, the PTSD section was primarily referring to, I think it was very specifically Vietnam veterans, I think is the way the textbook was written. And I talked to the class, we actually expanded on it a lot about provider PTSD and everything. And I've seen the same thing with you, sharing a lot about my background, childhood abuse. My ex-husband used to rape me. Um, Even not so much PTSD related to the field because honestly, calls just genuinely don't bother me. We have the one that bother for like an hour or so, but not like, nightmares type stuff. But talking about that kind of stuff, pretty much everybody in the class has started opening up, and everybody is realizing, oh my God, everybody has a traumatic background in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
And what might be traumatic for me might not be for you, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't matter. So I love that this whole thing has like kind of started with you. And we're
Yeah.
really looking forward to the summit.
Yeah. It's going to be awesome. I tell you, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, there's so many people that are dealing with something. I talk about
Mhm.
ACE scores, like you're sort of mentioning here, the adverse childhood events. Over half of us that are first responders, we score high on ACE test. The hurt become the helpers.
Yep. I have an ACE score of 9, and I had one counselor years ago that was not a trauma counselor. Literally, he looked at me one day and he goes, I don't know what to do with you. And I was like, I don't know what to do with that. And he's like, you're the exact opposite of somebody that I would expect to have an ACE score of a 9. Because, with your history, you should be like an addicted, like whore,
In
basically, who
prison.
can't hold it. Yeah, can't hold down a job, can't do anything. And at the time, I was a single mom to 2 kids in school, full-time job. And he was just like, I don't know what to do with you. So I was like, I need a different counselor. But the turnaround was a trauma counselor because they actually, sort of kind of knew what to do with me.
Yeah, yeah, that's wild.
So tell me, explain a little bit more about the um, kind of your mindset behind this summit, because we're used to seeing state-run events that are very almost repetitive, I would
Hmm.
say.
Very
And
repetitive. Yeah.
I really appreciate your approach to this and your mindset as to who you're involving and what your setup is. Like, you elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, so I almost wish that I had named it something different, because with it being the North Carolina First Responder Mental Wellness Summit, it's sort of got that tie to it's a state event, and
Mm-hmm.
it's everything but a state event. This was designed to be a grassroots effort because we're the 99%. We're the ones that are out there in the field, boots on the ground every day, doing the things. And you've got this 1% of groups that, you've got these state and federal agencies that get all this money to do all these things,
Mhm.
but who gets it? Maybe a couple of the large organizations benefits from it, but what about all the other the rural agencies, the ones who don't have, you know, trucks to just be able to take off the road when somebody's had a bad call? When you're only
Mhm.
3 or 4 trucks, you can't afford to take 2 of your trucks out of service. And then, what about the ones who don't get these state teams to come in and do things for them, love on them a
Mhm.
little bit, things like that. So I feel like we represent the 99%, and this is all about the ones who are doing the real work at the ground level that want to support each other. I mean, I've made so many friends just through organizing this event that have some of the biggest hearts in the world that you would never know they're doing the things they're doing. Cody, nocturnal dispatchers. Um, we just had a really bad shooting here in my home county. Robeson County had a shooting a couple nights ago with 13 shot and 2 killed at a party. And this dude's over states away from us and is putting out a message on Facebook wanting to know how to contact somebody at Robeson County because they want to love on their dispatchers some. They want to send them a meal, feed them a meal, give them some gift cards and things like that. And that's the things that make a difference. It's not this big look at what we do for our people, pat on the back.
Mm-hmm.
It's these little boots on the ground people that are like, hey man, we're a long ways away, but we're thinking about you. We love you and we want to do something for you. That means a lot. And there's so many of us out there like that. It's really important that we start a network together because one thing I realized early on in doing this, fighting some of the things that I fight with on the regular, anyways, with my anxiety and depression, it's really easy to get to a point where you just want to give up because you feel so defeated or so overwhelmed because this is such a big thing and I'm such a small person.
Mhm.
But through the networking and us coming together, I sort of call it like us being the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. With us being able to come together as a big group, man, we're able to really do something. Where one person may feel like their voice is never being heard, when you take, I think there was 53 people that wanted to present. When you've got that many people, we can make a megaphone and we can really show first responders that there's a lot of us out here that really do give a damn, and we want our people to be taken care of. We want our people to have longer careers, and we all see the things, but who's doing something about it? So this is just a very grassroots driven, boots on the ground effort to love on our people is really what I'm trying to do.
Mhm. I mean, we love grass grass grass.
That's a verbal stroke. We have those now and then.
grassroots projects. We really appreciate that. I mean, that's how we started this podcast. It was very much, to talk about leadership, mental health, doing the research, all the rest of it. And you're right. I mean, doing it, one-on-one. There are plenty of people that go viral and everything, but I mean, ultimately, the only way for EMS as a whole to make a difference and make a change is truly for all of us to come together with one motion. One person or one, couple like us or, whatever is not going to truly change the industry. It's going to require all these, little groupings to come together and say, fuck you, we're going to change this because what we were doing before isn't working.
And it's like you and I have talked before. We kind of have this mentality of we need someone to come and save us. And we're dependent on people to appreciate us more, the government to give us more money, all this, which yes would be awesome.
Great.
But we need to take responsibility for ourselves, even as you were referencing dealing with your own issues. Yeah, a lot of times you need external help, and external tools, but it's ultimately you that's doing the work. It's you that's putting in the effort. And that's what I think I'm most excited about with this summit is bringing the people together, the regular people who say, hey, this isn't just pie in the sky thinking. This is real world shit that we are all walking through. And here's how we can all help and support each other through it. I love it.
Yeah.
I do have a psychological question. If you were one of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, what color would you be?
This is like a rebel test or something.
Well, he brought it up. I have to claim blue just because I like the color blue. And I think he has
You know
blue
what?
T-Rex in his
Honestly,
boots.
I can't remember a whole lot of shit about the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers other than the pink Power Ranger was hot. She was
Maybe that's why
hot.
my parents didn't let me watch it.
Oh my god. See, I just went for like color psychology. I like blue.
Yeah.
God.
Don't get me wrong. I don't think I want to be the pink Power Ranger.
With the beard, I think you could pull it off.
You'd have been okay with some Mighty Morphin with the pink Power Ranger, is what you're saying. As a kid.
I love it.
Oh my goodness.
So, tell us a little bit of what you've done as far as leadership training, because I found that incredibly fascinating, and I'm very intrigued that there's someone grassroots who's actually trying to do something meaningful about it.
Yes.
Yeah, and I have to give a lot of credit to the EMS Officer Series here in North Carolina. I was able to teach with them for a couple of years. John Wilson, he's been phenomenal with putting that program together. They started working on that back in like around 2017, maybe. And it's been a great thing to have to bring some consistency to some education looking at leadership, and although I'm not with that group anymore, I'm still very much a fan of the model, the mission of what that's trying to do. And there needs to be more. There needs to be more folks who are having some structured leadership courses available. And, I'm saddened that we are the only organization or profession who chooses to hire their people or promote their people and then try to teach them how to do that job. I can remember my first time being a supervisor, just being tossed the keys. Here you go. Have at
Figure it out.
Yeah, almost like when I became a paramedic, right?
Well, and some stuff that we see locally across multiple agencies, it's not like it's just one in general. But speaking on the good old boy system, is you'll have people that everybody is looking at. They're like, how the fuck did this person get promoted? And then what's really irritating is when those people act horribly when speaking on like the leadership side. Not that they're horrible people or anything, but like they literally don't embody leadership and then don't get demoted. It's almost like, the higher up leadership don't want to admit that they made a poor judgment call on, oh, well, we're besties, so we're going to promote this person. Even though everybody is screaming, this person is fine as a person, but they shouldn't be leading when you have XYZ other person. And it's just really sad. A lot of the leadership stuff that we see locally, or even some of the organizations, again, across the upstate in our area, they have leadership conferences, classes, etc., that's only available to like the directors, not
Mhm.
field staff generally, and honestly not even shift supervisors or anything. It's just kind of like, here you go, you know how to boss people in some form or fashion. It's like, no, there's more to it than that.
So elaborate a little bit more as far as what are some practical things? Because we can talk about leadership conceptually and mental health conceptually, but bringing the two together, what are things that leaders can do now, things that are free for all intents and purposes, that they can start doing to be positively impacting mental health on a ground level for their people?
Well, I feel like it's relatively simple. Pay attention to your people. You know, it's not rocket science. It's, are you going to make a decision to make the operation the priority, or are you going to make the people the priority? We know what kinds of stress we put our people under. I think one thing that we don't realize, and this is something I'm starting to speak about more, we don't realize that a lot of our employees suffer more stress and trauma from the poor leadership than they do the types of calls that they go on.
Yes.
Every Everything from knowing that you have an astronomical UHU, you're running the shit out of your people, all the way down to we're just putting really shitty people in positions we shouldn't put people in,
Thank
and
God, preach.
and everything in between. So when we talk about cultures, the cultures that we allow to exist, when we talk about hiring a pulse and a patch, what does that do to your people who are trying to do the right thing day in, day out? They get burned out, or they just quit and leave, whatever the case may be. But you take what would otherwise be happy people and make it 20 times worse just through poor leadership. And I think a lot of times they don't even realize it, because, again, we're putting people into positions without any type of formal training. So a good paramedic does not mean you're going to be a good supervisor. You're not going to be a good director,
Yep.
and understanding that there's a difference between a manager and a leader. One of our biggest conversations that we have in our classes is talking about, leaders don't always wear brass, and just understanding that leadership isn't about a title, and respect is earned. You can't
Mm-hmm.
just put brass on some collars and have the respect of the people that work for you. But people just flip a switch when they get that promotion and just act like a complete asshole. And what we're doing is we're acting the way we've seen. Well, I've had that asshole before as a leader, so now I'm just emulating what I know as being correct as being a supervisor. I've been that same person that is fucked up like that. How did I lead? I led how I was led previously, and then I was doing it wrong.
Well, and I've also had a supervisor before that took the posture of, oh, well, I'm laid back and my people like it. And it wasn't actually being laid back. It was literally the epitome of laziness, that they show up on scene, they put their hands in their pockets, and they're just like, yep, do something. And they would, maybe bark at you that you were doing it incorrectly. But like when it came to paperwork or leading or guiding or giving advice or anything, there was nothing. If there was a problem child, they would puff their chest and be like, I'll take care of it. But then when they actually had the meeting, it was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, what is happening?
Well, and it's almost this generational trauma, just like with parenting, because
Yes.
we as parents, what is our default setting? It's usually to mimic what we were brought up with.
I was
Now,
going to say, hold up. I'm not
well, hold
abusive.
up, hold up, hold up. Now, there you tend to either mimic or
Yeah.
swing completely hard opposite the other way.
Mhm.
So I think that's where a lot of those issues come from, is you either have supervisors that are passing on the generational leadership trauma, or the ones who say, well, I don't want to be like that, so I'm going to be the exact opposite of it, and you're not an effective leader.
Mm-hmm.
And just like with parenting, it doesn't work. There's not you have to be this one way every time, but there's just some things that just don't work.
Yeah.
Well, so I do have a question. I have a feeling it's probably going to be a dumb question, but I still have to ask for clarification. Have you read or listened to the audiobook, The Extreme Ownership and or Dichotomy of Leadership?
No.
Oh, okay. They're really good. So that was kind of my first introduction, like true introduction to like any kind of formal research on like being a leader and everything. And when I read Extreme Ownership, I made the mistake of taking that shit to heart, which kind of fucked me up for a little while. And then I read Dichotomy of Leadership. But I thought it was really interesting some of the practices in it it's more military, but it's very applicable to business, to public service, to literally anything in life. And I really liked that they talked about how every single person can be a leader. Like even if you are the lowest cert on our example that always irritates everybody is cardiac arrest. You could be the lowest cert of cardiac arrest, but you being an extreme leader, you are in charge of airway. You are in charge of your job and you are going to commit to it. And like, I think that is a wonderful thing that you're wanting to reach all levels of pretty much everybody, not just with mental health, but also we need to encourage these babies coming to the field because guess what? When I retire and possibly die, these are the ones that are going to be dealing with me. And I would like them to be properly trained, not too shy that they don't know how to do CPR.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, I'm aware of those books, and I haven't read, but I am a fan of Simon Sinek.
Yes.
You know, he has a lot of good stuff, and I really do push folks towards reading and listening to what he says because I think it fits better with the generational differences that we're starting to see, and that's another important piece of leadership is understanding generational differences and just like being in the classroom, the way students learn, I can't teach the way I was taught. They learn differently, and understanding how they need to communicate the differences, the preferred communications. I think one thing that I got wrong early in my leadership career was I expected everybody to come to my level. And I think it's really important as a leader that you learn how to go to everyone else's level. It's my responsibility as a leader to meet each individual where they are and not have the expectation for them to come up to where I'm at. Because you will have failures, because obviously you have people that are in different levels of learning. And so I'm setting them up to fail if I'm expecting them to come up here where I am. And so I think it's really important that you start thinking about meeting them where they are, much like we do for our patients.
You know, you bring up an interesting point, and it's been a bit since we had talked about this, but I'm curious your insight on it. The difference in the generations, I think, is something that we blow off too easily. Because what does every single generation say about the one that comes after it? Oh, they're lazy. They don't work hard. They don't care.
Yeah.
But every generation does it. What do you see as the differences, and especially the positive differences with this up and coming generation of providers following us?
I think one of the biggest positive things is now we're getting into the generations who's been born into technology. Everything that we do is going tech. So you've got a lot of us that have been doing this for a while. We're like, fuck, we hate this. We hate this change. Yeah. You know, but you've got now I'm getting new employees. I don't have to teach them how to turn the fucking computer on, right? So that's a good thing.
Yeah, fair.
When I was a supervisor, I was like, listen, you old ass 40-year-old man, here's how you turn on a computer. And now I've got 8-year-olds over here showing me how to do some new app on the tablet or whatever, or on my phone. So I do love that piece. I love that we're bringing people in who have a better understanding of technology, because I believe that's something that sort of slowed me down in the 20-teens, was trying to teach. But on top of teaching, I'm having to teach them the tech that they didn't understand too, which was really simply opening up the computer and hitting the app to be able to do your chart. That was a problem for some people. So I love that piece. I love that these the newer generations are more about, I don't mind doing the job, but if I'm going to do it, you're going to fucking pay me for it. I
Mhm.
love that. I think this is
Mhm.
where Gen X really fucked up. We fucked up because we want to make everybody happy. We want to do a good
Mhm.
job. We want to go above and beyond. We don't know how to say no. So I think that's something that we can learn from the newer generations is that, you know what, I
Mhm.
don't mind doing it, but if you want me to do three dudes' jobs, you need to give me three dudes' paychecks. And I think that's another big difference in the generations. And they've got it right.
Mhm. Well, and they also seem to be more vocal about things that aren't fair. It's been more recently even that they're talking about how bad culture is. And I feel like some of the turnover in EMS, yes is pay, yes is, this, that, all the rest of it. But it's also the unhappiness with how bad crews are getting butt fucked on shift with no lube. And they're like, why isn't this changing? And they're not accepting the good old boy system of, oh, well, just do what I say. And they're like, but why? And I know my always needed to know why irritates Daniel for ever so slightly sometimes. But there is a certain aspect of it that, if leadership is doing questionable stuff, we're officially to the point where everybody's starting to question it. And that's where I think leadership classes to the I almost said general public, but, field staff and everything is so important. And they're more vocal about mental health. And of course, mental health is expanding because we're doing more research on it. So it's kind of a cumulative thing. But you make a very good point with that. They're very vocal about a lot more than even my generation because I've been a certified provider shorter period than you two old dogs. So I'm kind of a baby of the group. But I mean, even since I started EMS, I mean, people are questioning more than ever. And sometimes it's not in a great way, and then sometimes it's fantastic. Leadership just doesn't always have an answer.
Well, you know, it's funny you bring up the technology part. I feel like I'm from this gap generation. I mean, there's some leeway on either side. I'm 35 now, so the internet was very, 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 very new when I was growing up.
Mhm.
But I feel like my general age group understands the why of technology.
Mhm.
Why does the technology work this way? Why does Wi-Fi work? What are networks? How does an operating system work? Like we were on the developmental slope of that. Now these new kids, they've always had it.
Mhm.
They've only seen micro changes, not macro changes. So I find that kind of funny. What what do you think drives this younger generation? Because we were taught to just do our job. Nut up, shut up, do your job, carry on. What is it that's driving this newer group of people? If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow us on YouTube at paramedicaf, or you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify at the Paramedic AF Show. You can catch up on the Daily Debrief, kind of a sub show within the Paramedic AF Show, or you can watch our full-length episodes, including interviews and discussions on leadership, culture, personal wellness, mental health, everything related to daily life in EMS. Make sure you hit like and subscribe.